August 1991, New York. At Salomon Brothers, one of the most powerful firms on Wall Street, a statement goes out that lands like a detonation. A trader had broken the rules at auctions of U.S. Treasury bonds. But that was not the part that destroyed everything. The dangerous part was this. The firm's leadership had known for months and done nothing. Within days, John Gutfreund falls, the man they called the King of Wall Street. But then something strange happens. The story does not stay with him. It moves on into his wife's apartment, to her flowers, to her parties. And suddenly, it is not Wall Street that bears the blame, but Susan Gutfreund. Later, the press called her the Marie Antoinette of Wall Street, the woman with the orchids, the woman from Fifth Avenue, the woman who rented Blenheim Palace for a company party and lived in Paris as if the old world belonged to her. This label was convenient. It was easy to tell. But perhaps it was never fair. Perhaps she stayed in memory not because she was guilty, but because she was visible. So the question is not whether she lived in luxury. She did. The question is, why did Wall Street need a woman, of all people, as the face of its guilt? Susan Elizabeth Caposta was born in Chicago in 1946. Not into old money. Her father was an Air Force pilot. The family moved again and again. And Susan learned early what it means to be the new girl over and over and to find her footing fast. She learned how to belong before she belonged. Later, she became a Pan Am stewardess. Pan Am meant worldliness and a closeness to the rich and famous that a young woman with no money of her own could otherwise hardly reach. But Susan did not just see this world. She studied it. You had to know how to present yourself, how to host, how to turn possessions into effect. Then she met John Gutfreund. He was not simply rich. He was institutional power. Salomon Brothers was one of the toughest firms on Wall Street. Gutfreund was no decorative boss there. He was a man of numbers, of traders, of control. Taste was not his world. His world was pressure. What looked like a marriage was also a joining of two systems, male financial power and female visibility. But it was exactly this joining that was dangerous. The men earned the money in rooms almost no one saw. The women showed it in rooms everyone could talk about. And when something went wrong, the visible image was easier to attack than the invisible system behind it. Susan learned in Paris, from decorators, collectors, and aristocratic friends. That made her sought after, but it also made her vulnerable. Because someone who visibly works her way up is judged differently than someone born at the top. The first great break did not come at a dinner. It came from her husband's firm. At Salomon Brothers, the trader Paul Moser had placed forbidden bids at auctions for U.S. Treasury bonds. He submitted bids in the names of clients who had not authorized them. But for John Gutfreund, it was not only the act that became dangerous. His silence became dangerous. He and other top people learned of it and did not report it. For 5 months, the matter stayed inside the firm. When it became public in August 1991, the facade broke. The stock fell. Authorities stepped in. The government threatened to strip Salomon of its status as a key dealer in Treasury bonds. For the firm, that would have been almost a death sentence. Gutfreund resigned. Warren Buffett had to step in to stabilize the firm. The King of Wall Street had lost his throne. But then the story took a second turn. The press found a more vivid image. Not the gray world of bonds, but Susan. Her orchids, her French furniture, her seemingly boundless staging of luxury. That was easier than securities law, and for her it became dangerous, because now everything she had built suddenly looked different. A party was no longer a party. It became a piece of evidence. A gift was no longer a gift. It became a symbol of decadence. A beautiful room was no longer taste. It became extravagance. What had once counted as elegance became, in hindsight, guilt. John Gutfreund was a grown man. He ran Salomon Brothers. He did not make his decisions because his wife sent flowers. And yet, her luxury was used to explain his world, as if she had caused the scandal, as if the real problem had not been power, but beauty, not the breaking of rules, but decoration. That was the exposure. It was not Susan who had lost control of Salomon Brothers. The men there had lost it. While Warren Buffett was trying to save the firm, people preferred to write about Susan Gutfreund's orchids, because she was the better picture, the better culprit. She carried the glamour, so the dirt could be pinned on her too. But Susan did not do what many expected. And she did not leave her husband, though many counted on exactly that. She stayed, not loudly, but stubbornly. New York turned away. And Paris? Paris stood by her. Not everyone, but enough. Her relationships were not only bought, at least part of them had grown over years through knowledge, through her interest in things older than her own social life. But the story was not done with her yet. After the scandal, John Gutfreund was no longer the man he had been, and Susan had to go on living in a world that had first celebrated her and then mocked her. The Fifth Avenue apartment remained. The furniture remained. But the meaning had changed. What had once looked like triumph now seemed like a remnant. A stage set after the end of the show, and years later came the second blow. After John's death, Susan gave up the apartment. It came onto the market at a price that made even New York pause. $120 million. But the market no longer believed in this dream. The price fell, and fell, and fell. In the end, the apartment changed hands for $53 million. Not only a man had fallen, the stage on which this marriage had once shone had lost its magic too. The price of this story was not only money. John lost his power. Susan lost her standing. The marriage lost its glamour. New York dropped her. And what had once been taste now counted as evidence against her. She was not punished because she had caused the scandal. She was punished because she embodied it better than the men who had made it possible. She became not only the woman who owned beautiful things, she became a woman who worked with beautiful things, as a decorator, as a collector, as someone whose knowledge was taken seriously. Because if Susan had really been only an extravagant wife, nothing of her should have remained after the glamour ended. But that is exactly what remained. She had learned, perhaps out of a hunger for recognition, perhaps out of genuine love for beauty, probably out of both at once. And that is exactly what made the old verdict too easy. The woman mocked as a symbol of excess had understood more than many who mocked her. Years later, the furniture, artworks, and objects from the famous apartment were auctioned off. The world Susan had built was broken into individual lots: chairs, paintings, silver, memories with catalog numbers. She let all of it go, without a word of regret, like someone who finally knew what possession is and what it is not. She gave up the furniture, not what she had learned,